Hello and welcome to Finding the Faith. It is Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is when we gather here live on Rumble. So thank you guys in the chat for being here, and those who will watch this later. I can't wait to get into this. So without further ado, let's talk to our guest, Kim Coulter. Hey Kim, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing, I'm blessed and highly favored. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
Your microphone just did a really weird thing.
Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to turn off.
Yeah.
I'm trying to mute when I'm not talking so you guys don't get my background noise so much.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. You just kind of like came in and out. I'm doing well, thank you. So the first question that I ask every guest is, what are your first memories of religion?
Well, I grew up in what you would typically hear referred to as kind of a C&E house. My mom was a bit more devout to her faith, but I also grew up in a house where my mother was a Catholic and my father was a Presbyterian. So there was kind of, a division over like which churches we would go to. And I think just like my earliest memories of church are probably, like Sunday school, getting ready for confirmation, honestly being a little bit bored sitting in sermons that seemed way above my head, and being forced to get out of bed on Sunday mornings typically. But I would say my faith didn't necessarily really bloom and evolve in a serious way until my early 20s.
Yeah, that can definitely be a time of like spiritual awakening for people when you're actually able to be out in the world and see how all of it integrates. So we were talking about before the show, and you mentioned that you are currently attending a Methodist church. What's that like, and how did that start? And do you consider yourself a Methodist?
Well, I am a formal member of the Methodist Church in my area, and I don't know if I would consider myself a Methodist per se. I just know that when I came to this area for the first time, one of the most important things for me was finding a church for my family and finding a church that I felt like was going to be a good spot for us. And it's actually a funny story because like even the finding of this church was, I feel like, a God intervention in and of itself, because I was supposed to go to another service. I plugged in the address for another service, and the first place that I went to, the church was like not running anymore. This was like right around the end of COVID stuff. So I assume that it like just kind of went under.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, well, like we're dressed up with nowhere to go. Let's just find another service. So I typed in yet another address that turned into nothing. And in getting lost trying to find this other place, I saw, this place is having a service right now. So I pulled in and I brought the kids inside, and I walked in, and the first thing that I observed was that everybody was having like a community moment. It was like how they begin each sermon, I would find out later, is with, like prayers and concerns of the community. So everybody knows everybody's name. It was also really, I go on podcasts and I do the whole like social media thing, but like really I'm just like a disguised extrovert, introverted person. So when I walked in and there was not that many people, that was also like very comforting. But everybody knows each other's family. Everybody knows who's going through what, and like if somebody's missing, we know why. You know what I mean? Like it's obvious that they're gone, and we know that they're gone. So it was like part of this mystical and illusory church that I had heard about growing up, where it's a community, and a real community, and not just kind of like, oh, I know some of the kids in Sunday school type thing. And I just fell in love immediately, and they embraced my kids, and they embraced me and my husband, and my pastor actually got my husband his job here. I told him he was looking for work, and he did a call right then and there. And the way this community works, the guy who answered, they had worked together previously doing contracting work. And the guy answered the phone, and he said, yeah, I got this young buck here. He's really, ready to work. He's high energy guy. He has experience. And the guy said, all right, give him my number and he'll start on Monday. Like, no, didn't know his name, didn't know anything. The pastor called and recommended this guy, and that was enough.
That's
And he's
amazing.
still working with them, all these years later. So that's the power of like a real community church.
Absolutely. That's something that I know so many of our viewers and, your host here herself are definitely looking to find. Right now, I stream into a church in Texas, which is where my best friend goes for her services. And they're a church exactly like that. So when it comes to Methodism, just to double check, that's like Methodism is like what it's called, right? I'm not just like making up right. Okay. There's so many different like ways to subjugate like religious verbs that I'm like um so what are some of your favorite things about the denomination and like your church, and what are some of your things that are like less than ideal?
Um, Honestly, it seems as though like I share most of the same moral values as Methodism. Like they, I'm one of the younger members of the church, so they tried to
Mhm.
like approach me gently when it came to the matters of like homosexuality and stuff like that. Like not unsure if I was going to be like, and I'm on the same page as they are as far as that. It's like it's still a sin. It's a sin in the book, and it's against the word of God, and we're not going to, it is not our job to judge, but it is our job to try to offer the chance of salvation, and to bear witness whenever possible. So it does seem as though like all of those align. I do think that Methodism does acknowledge female pastors, and I don't necessarily agree on that, but I'm also, especially in the kind of church that I'm in, I'm not
Mhm.
turning my nose when we have guest pastors. These are typically when there is a woman who is speaking, it's someone who is a member of the church who I'm very good friends with. She sings for our church like all the time,
Mhm.
so it's do I believe that women belong in the role of pastors? No, but do I bring a picket fence, or do I picket and boo her out of the front of the room when she's speaking? No. It's just one of those things, and there's so many other benefits and beautiful things to this church that
Mhm.
having a few things that I disagree with them on, it's a drop in the bucket comparatively. Um,
Yeah.
like when my own biological mother couldn't show up when I was in labor, my pastor and his wife took my daughter when I had to go to the hospital. It would like that's just like
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade that for nearly anything in the world. So having a few
Understandably.
differences, and I feel like there's something to this. Like there's no individual denomination of Christianity that I am like 100%. This is,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be like a buffet Christian, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
Yeah.
I do want to pick a denomination, but that's sort of the problem that I run into is, well, which one of these do I object to less? Because
Yeah.
I am a woman of faith, and I do believe that this is all part of God's plan, and I do believe I'm a child of God. Um, and I, be fruitful and multiply and all of that. But
You're doing great on that front. I mean, you're doing
exactly, I'm
October.
working on number 3 right now. Um, and so, I'm not perfect in my faith, but I'm also very late to my faith. And I find that the part of like learning about my faith is
Mhm.
just actually involving myself and being honest with myself about how I feel about what I'm learning, and
Yeah.
opening up with that to the people who know more than me.
That's so well said, because there's so many steps in kind of like the beginning of a lifelong journey. Not to sound woo or anything, but like, it is something, walking with the Lord your entire life towards, at whatever point you find him. And that's one of the things where it's like, be open minded, but it's also sometimes hard to be like, okay, so this is, do I agree with this or not? Because like my understanding is like here, and like maybe somebody who's like over here at like a different point in their, walk would view things differently, but like this is where I am. And with, prayer and discernment and our husband's guidance, that's where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's just like it's a never-ending process. Even if you started earlier in life, you're still always evolving with your faith, and you're still always evolving with the book and the people around you, and like your church is ever evolving.
Absolutely. Now, when we were talking about you coming on the show, there was a little bit of a rumbling about a potential denomination switch.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry. There was a little bit of a rumbling about a potential denomination switch for
Uh,
you and your
yeah,
family.
I mean, I heavily lean towards Catholicism. I do, like I said before, I have my setbacks about a lot of stuff, but I do heavily that does seem to be the direction that my faith is taking, and that I feel pulled towards when I do have like my religious reflections and my Bible studies. It does make a lot of sense to me, and it feels most comfortable to me. But the problem with that is that, like with modern Catholicism, a lot of it is corrupted and co-opted. And I don't mean that to speak poorly, but like no one church speaks for another church, and no one person speaks for an entire church. But for instance, here when I was looking for Catholic churches, all of the Catholic churches have gay flags.
Yes, that's the biggest
All of the
problem
Catholic
in
churches have gay
England.
flags, and I'm just not
Yes.
interested. I don't like. I tried to go to 3 different Catholic. Like one specifically was like a Latin mass,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wearing my head covering and everything, and I go to walk up to the place, and there's a giant, love is love with a giant rainbow flag, and it was just one of those like,
Yeah.
okay, like what's the point? I'm not gonna. I don't want to like. I'm gonna walk in and it's gonna be a female pastor. I just know it. Like with the lesbian haircut and everything. I can't do it. I can't take it serious.
Exactly. Like, oh, holy water, no. Here's some glitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it just,
Big mood.
that part, it's, that's another thing, because what what's the point in picking a denomination if there's no really set difference? Because I know I'm not saying that there's no differences, because obviously there wouldn't be separations and there wouldn't be title changes if it wasn't for like fundamental differences. But at the end of the
There's a
day, like, and my
yeah.
pastor says this all the time, at the end of the day, there's only one denomination, and there's only, we're all following the same man, and we all are, we all like devote our lives to this purpose. And it doesn't, like, whatever like subculture label you add to it isn't going to matter at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's one of those like things where it's like, okay, this is like the doctrine that specific denomination subscribes to, but is that actually what they do in practice? And that's, the really big thing that I've come to learn, where it's like, okay, like, well, do our best to avoid the heresies, go with what the Bible says, and follow Jesus, just like your
Right, and
pastor
I'm sure there's
says.
still areas in my life that need to be weeded out, and I'm sure there's still
Same.
a lot of lessons that I need to learn. And I I necessarily believe that I need to be in a certain denomination, like formally, to do that? No, I found a home in the Methodist Church, and while myself I don't necessarily identify as strongly with Methodism as I do with Catholicism, it's the quality of the church and the quality of the people
Yes.
at the church. And a lot of the people at this church, I will say, are also themselves not Methodist. Like, we're full of all the different denominations, and what we have in common is this love for the community church. And like every single Thursday they do a potluck dinner where everybody brings something, and we do like an intensive Bible study, and we have a sermon, and it's like we do like holiday events, and we
That's
do
so
like
amazing.
community events, and it's just like so beautiful and so wholesome. And it's just like, like I said, I can't imagine wanting to go anywhere else.
Absolutely. Like, that sounds like such a blessing, especially, not only for yourself, but also for your family.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, we don't have family nearby, so like having a place where every Thursday the same group of people who all honestly like love each other and treat each other like family get together for like a big meal is so good to have as an option for my kids, and so good to have as an option for me. I just like it's such a community bonding experience, and it's we have nice talks, and then
Yeah.
we get to break off in our own little groups and just like enjoy the meal. and enjoy each other. And I just think that there's something really beautiful about that, especially, like I said, for somebody who is like so far disconnected from any like close family. Like, this is my family. Like I said, my pastor took care of my daughter when I was in labor. Like, that's like, for all intents and purposes, like, that's their grandparents, you know?
Yeah,
That's how
like
they
that's
see
like
them.
the dream church. Like that's, so much what I think especially our generation is really, really, really wanting to get plugged into. Where it actually matters if you show up. If it actually matters, like people will miss you if you're not there. You know,
I think
really,
people
yeah.
crave that kind of community, and people often seek it in places that are predatory, because they're not taught to look for the positives. They're just taught to look for people who are like, quote unquote accepting
Mhm.
or embracing, and a lot of those people are not good people.
Exactly.
And that's not to say that those predators aren't in the church. And the thing, and I will always be very upfront about this, because wherever people are vulnerable, there are going to be predators.
Yeah.
And there are going to be people who assume the role of the nice, upstanding churchgoer, and secretly they're really a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back again to one of the first points I made, that no one individual person speaks for an entire denomination, much less an entire religion. So
Exactly.
you still, like, it's not as if once you're in the church you are free from the ability to be preyed upon, or free from the fear of getting preyed upon, because you need to be mindful of that in any situation that you're in. But
Exactly.
I do find, like I said, I finally found that little community, and like, these are all incredible people who have, basically adopted us into this little church family. Like, if I miss church, like,
Mm-hmm.
I hear about it, you know what I mean, from like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people. And it's always, like, are you okay, how's it going, like, missed you at church today, would you mind sending a picture of the kids, like,
Yeah.
really sweet.
That's amazing. Especially not, adding more to like the mom guilt, but just, your presence matters. We love you. Um, Chat just said she doesn't need to worry about background noise. Emily Zanotti has been on with all of the chaos she brings. One time she literally podcasted with me and she had a chicken on her shoulder.
Okay, that's really adorable.
Yes. She is amazing. I want to be her when I grow up. I've told her that. So now getting more into your work at the National File,
Yeah.
because I know that my audience is particularly interested in that, since you're the director of digital content there.
Yes, I haven't written in a long time, but I have done a lot of good reporting with them. They're incredible reporters over there. You should definitely support them and check them out. We're a really small operation, and we don't function with nearly the budget of like all of these people who are bought and paid for.
Mhm.
And we're the home of the Ashley Biden diary, man. Like, we got that out there into the world, and um, that's only a drop in the bucket. Like, there's so many other big stories. Excuse me. And major reporting that's gone on through there.
Yeah, you guys do incredible work, and that's something to really, hang your hat on and be proud of. How has your role allowed you to merge your faith with your professional life?
Well, I mean, you have to be a woman of faith in order to deal with a lot of the stress that comes along with this work, to be
Mhm.
completely honest, especially in the beginning. I've really, we've had a few other women who've worked with us before, but I've been the most consistent female employee. And I was there from the very beginning. I was like the first staff at the National File. So I got a lot of the like rape stories, and I get a lot
Mhm.
of the like abortion stories, and I
Yeah.
get a lot of the stories that people want a woman to be speaking on, and
Mhm.
those happen to be like really horrific and really scary. And it's also put me in positions where, like, uncovering a pedophile myself, I had to start like blocking the end of my driveway with my car because I was getting threats from people. And I
Yeah.
I've had a lot of weird encounters and weird situations because, like, I do effective work, and even
Mhm.
though I haven't written in a while, when I do write, I have a good track record. I haven't had to retract a story, beyond like changing something simple like, oh, you misspelled a name or something. I'm the queen of typos. Anybody who follows me on Twitter knows that like I shoot from the hip, and 9 out of 10 times there will be some kind of mistake in there. So that's been the biggest lesson. But the National File has really been amazing, and quite frankly, I got into the National File because I was fired from my coffee job because I defended Alex Jones, basically. And a coworker had said, he should be shot in the street. And I said that was an appropriate thing to say. So I lost my job. And that began just like this, what am I going to do? I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in the first place. And through a lot of really good people, Laura Loomer included, I was connected to the heads at the National File, and I had worked in West Coast Lifestyle magazine before, so it's not as if I was unfamiliar with publishing, and I've written before. It's not like I couldn't figure it out, and they were willing to teach me. So they said, okay, well, you're clearly understand social media. You've worked in publishing before. Hop right in, and we'll teach you how to do news copy. And what is it, like 6 years later? Like here we are. And the rest is history, and we're still trucking along, even though people have tried to, dismantle us at every turn.
Yeah, you must have learned a lot of lessons from your aunt there about how to effectively, balance that and stay safe.
Well, she's a superhuman. She pulls like the most insane hours, and she works harder than almost anybody that I know. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that puts in the level of work and dedication that she does. And she's not only just like an incredibly hard worker, but she's a really brilliant woman, and definitely top tier as far as intellect. And it was everybody likes to think that like, oh, like the name definitely helps. I will say that. At least get me in the door. But honestly, the person that got me the job was Laura Loomer. Like, at the end of the day, like Anne had nothing to do. I had no idea who these people were, and I was very lucky to be able to meet the people I was able to meet and have them see enough in me to be willing to take a chance referring me.
Well, there's a lot in you. I mean, you've done incredible work. You have an incredible personality. Like, that's why when I was tweeting out about this episode, I'm like, yeah, Kim's a breath of fresh air. She's amazing. Because you are.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
So, what do you enjoy most about working at the National File? Like, if you had to pick one thing that is your favorite there.
Honestly, it's just like the environment that the National File comes with. Like, no matter how many times like writers change over, no matter what, like the environment of like the people I work with is always astronomically better than any other job I've ever had. When we do get together, it's always so much fun. And I also like, there is something to having the confidence of like, when people, a lot of people will go like, we'll try to dox you, or we'll try to write to your employer and get you fired or whatever. And I do say some pretty outlandish things, and I do, I do draw from the hip, and I'm not willing to hold my tongue on a lot of things. And maybe in like a standard corporate job that might not always be great, and I probably wouldn't be able to connect my business persona to my work profile. But here, whenever somebody's like, I'm going to talk to your boss, and I don't think anyone at the National File, like, first of all, like I run a lot of the National File social media pages, so like, you're yelling at me, and then on top of that,
that's always the funniest thing.
It's really, really funny. And then on top of that, it's like my biggest flex as far as employment has always been whenever someone's like, I'm going to find out, I'm going to email your boss, I just like tag my boss, or I'll send them the email. It's just like, all right, go ahead, have at it. And like, if I hear about it at all, it's like, stop sending these people to our email, Kim, or like I don't care type thing. Like, oh, that's great. Anyway.
That was another funny thing too, when like, because I've both worked in journalism, but also I've taken time off and been a homemaker. It was really, really funny during the year I was a homemaker. People were like, I'm going to tell your boss about this. It's like, oh yeah, tell my husband he's right here. He thinks you suck.
It's like, oh yeah, let me go get my husband for you real quick.
Yeah, here he is.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
that's definitely
talk.
like empowering in a like really good way. It's like,
Yeah,
because like I would never say something truly unhinged, um, but you know, uh, it's still nice whenever somebody's like, I'm gonna tell on you. It's like, all right, go ahead. Like,
yeah,
here's his profile, here's his email. Like, I'll give you everything short of his phone number.
exactly. Like, see how that pays off for you.
Right.
There you go, bud.
My favorite, actually, I
Mhm.
will say really quickly.
Yeah.
Um, I told my boss I was doing this too, but
Mhm.
like someone like messaged the National File directly and was like, one of your writers is da 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 da, and I was like, oh really? I'm like responding to this person like, well, what happened next?
That's amazing. That's hilarious.
The whole
Yeah.
time they're just like, oh.
Back when I was social media managing for ADP, American Daily Press, it was really funny because like this woman, this amazing godly woman who was like so precious, she like people were like talking crap to her, and she, let them know where they could go with that, and they were like, so and so said this to me. I'm like, good for her. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and like that is a flex because a lot of people like really don't have that, and that it is kind of a privilege that I try not to take for granted. Is just like having an employer who's like so, like does not care.
Yeah.
Like that is her social media. Like like I have them tagged in the thing or whatever, but like they're very comfortable. He's very comfortable if someone's like, well, what if she said this and he disagreed, he would openly be like, yeah, that's not like, he doesn't take me having them in my profile as me. Like every single thing I say has to be endorsed by the National File and every single person at the National File. And like the other end of that is like I've never given them a story that they've turned down either.
Mhm.
Like I'm not like, I know a lot of publications will like just not allow you to say certain things, and
Yeah,
like we
for
don't like to
sure.
talk about a lot of the right wing publications that are like that, that all follow like the same narrative, but like that's never been the case here, and I would always rather work for less money and keep my integrity and like feel good about myself at the end of the day, and like know that I've done good for the world, and know that I put positive and like accurate information into the news space rather than like sleeping on a like fat check and just like compromising all my morals and teaching my kids to be liars.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I really admire you, honestly. So, talking, about family life, when it comes to marriage, how has your faith influenced your approach to marriage, particularly in like balancing traditional roles with modern day challenges?
Well, like I would say a lot of my deprogramming from feminism started with like figuring out my role as like a biblical wife. And like
Mhm.
even I struggle to this day with that. But um, like the at the end of the day, I do trust him to be the head of the home. I do trust him to lead my family. I do trust him to lead me. And that's not always going to make me feel good about him. And that's another thing that like we should be really honest about. Like you're not always going to be happy with the things that your husband is saying, but like at the end of the day, the big thing that always brings me back is when he's like, like I'm not going to tell you to like eat glass or
Mhm.
like walk over a bed of nails. If I'm like saying something, it's because I like, it's for the betterment of everyone. And he's totally right, and
Exactly.
that's always the most accurate thing. But I do think that we also still like come from pretty dysfunctional families ourselves. So
Mhm.
like, we've known each other over half our lives, and like it's definitely, we manage that and we know how to manage that. But you live with someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like it's gonna, you're
Exactly.
gonna have your problems. And that's another like disillusionment of people, who are, I see a lot of people getting divorced, and while I understand sometimes there are instances where that has to happen,
Mhm.
like there was a thread going on just yesterday where people were talking about, like a woman's like TikTok, her husband let her garden die or something, and it was like a 10-day trip, and like he never
Mhm.
takes care of the garden, and the flowers are like really particular flowers, you have to water them a very specific way, and
Mhm.
everybody in the comments was like, divorce him. And I just it was just one of those like, is marriage is you make your lifelong commitment with such trivial attitude towards your partner. Be upset with him, of course, that's horrible. I would feel horrible. And I would feel a little bit betrayed, especially because she did say she reminded him and he thought that the rain was enough. And I'm sure you hear that, it's just like, oh gosh. And like, it takes a lot of time to rebuild that. But the fact of the matter is, it's not a divorceable offense. And all
Exactly.
people are
It
like, oh,
can
well,
be
that's just a sign
rebuilt.
he doesn't care. No, it's not. That's not his wheelhouse. He doesn't deal with your garden every day. He doesn't know that your orchids need exactly like a cup and a half of water and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. He doesn't know any of that crap. And, was he, could he have tried a little bit harder to learn it? Or, maybe you could speculate about that all day.
Exactly.
But the fact of the matter is, like, I don't know what it would be like my husband, like, oh yeah, like I'm going out for a little while. Can you make sure to like, lay brick for me? Like, I don't know what. Like,
exactly. Like there's so many.
It's gonna be horrible. Yeah. But it's not gonna work. I can't lift that. I can't even,
Absolutely.
And to like make it seem like a marriage-ending offense is just so asinine to me. It doesn't make any sense. And I feel like so many people approach it with that, and like you're not going to have a lifelong partnership with somebody and get along and agree on everything every single day. Like stressful things happen at work, stressful things happen at home, stressful things happen in the family or in this economy. Like it's life presents all kinds of stresses and people aren't perfect all the time. So people are going to commit sin. People are going to maybe say something that they didn't mean to say, or they're going to be a little bit sharper than they meant to be. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you love that person, you're going to get your apology. You guys are going to make up. And it doesn't necessarily mean they care less about you. It means that they're human, and that to be human is to make mistakes, and to make a lifelong commitment with somebody is to say, you're going to have flaws and we're going to work through it and it's going to be okay.
Exactly. Some of the best decisions of my life about how I've turned things around have literally come from my husband looking me dead in the face and going, I love you, but you're an idiot.
Exactly.
And looking back on like any of those few times that that's happened in our relationship, I'm like, no, you're absolutely right. I was being an idiot and you loved me and you didn't want me to be an idiot. So I fixed it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And like vice versa. Like, it's not like he's like perfect. It's not like I'm perfect. I don't expect either of us to be perfect all the time. I just expect that we both try. Exactly. And like, what, even that, sometimes there are going to be times where like one of us has to try a little bit harder. And it's about finding the balance in that. And still, like he's still the head of our house. He's still the person that I look to most. He's still the person that like, we have to agree on stuff. We have to be a united front for these little kids that we're raising, and to like, to figure out like where we fit in our community and where we fit in our church and like what direction we want with our lives. Like all of these things are, that's where we are like building this foundation.
Absolutely. That's so well said, because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, would you take this person that you've built this life with, or would you take like some robot Chad like robot thing? It's like, which one do you think you'd be happier with?
I mean, I still got the Chad. He's still, like totally. But yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I basically just mean like a male Stepford wife.
Yeah, like, no, that would be horrible
all the time, right?
No, that would be horrible. I wouldn't want that. Life needs to be a little spicy.
Exactly. So what ways do you guys work together to keep the faith at the center of your marriage?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
In what ways do you guys work together to keep faith at the center of your marriage?
I mean, like faith and community are tied really closely together for that. It's just a matter, like, we just want to be good examples for our kids. And a big part of that is teaching them a basic foundation for morality and for spirituality. I'm like, I don't mean like, like, oh, I'm spiritual, not religious. I mean like actual religious spirituality.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And like I said, I think we really found that in the community that we have. And it's about the people that you choose to keep around, and it's about the values that you want to impart on them. And religion is such a fundamental part of that.
Absolutely. That's so true. How does your faith guide you as an approach to like as you're approaching motherhood through all of the different about to have three under three?
Yeah, 33 and under is definitely like the next step up in the challenge. I don't know. I feel like at this point, uh, I've learned with the first and then with the second, you figure it out. Uh, you do find a way when you have to. You find a way, and you choose your struggle, and like to like go through the newborn phase and the all of that is really a place to channel that faith.
For sure. Or is there anything that you find helpful when it comes to like teaching your kids about Jesus or about the Bible outside of, bringing them to church?
Really just like being open with them and talking about it with them when I find examples of ways to bring it into and I mean that's how we really go about everything. Is every single experience can be a learning experience in one way or another, but for them mostly I think it's about the structure of like community and the structure of having a place that is a home, a second home, and a place where you go where you can feel accepted by everybody and uh, bring your grievances and bring your prayers and it'll be received very openly.
That's wonderful. And your kids are so cool. They're really lucky to have you as a mom.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean I'm very biased, but they are very very cool. They're just like so smart and they're so sweet.
What do you love most about meeting a mom?
Oh my god, there's so many things. I guess just being able to like be not I don't want to like make it sound sad, but like being able to be what like I wish I had.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah. When
being
you're going through like breaking generational curses and all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
that's so important and
because like
wonderful.
it really is true when you have kids you do realize a lot of the things you were told were really hard and really trying. It's really not. And I don't mean to say that like parenting isn't hard and that you don't get stressed out and you don't get like frustrated when they do things that are frustrating, but like 90% of the gig is showing up and 90% of the gig
Yeah.
is just like expressing that you love them no matter what and that you're like just like being a stable ground for them because they're not rational beings for a really long time. They're not. And
Yeah.
they don't know how to express their emotion in a way that's regulated. They don't know how to tell you what they need. So you just need to be a place of stability for them to figure it out. And I don't mind being that. I love being that. I love that like when my daughter's having a tantrum, I can say, okay, well, do you just need a hug? And should 9 out of 10 times, like,
Oh, so cute. Yeah.
um, you know, it's just like, and then watching her, like have these like aha moments with things and watching her
Mhm.
like be excited and juiced for herself.
Mhm.
It's very rewarding.
Those were always my favorite ages to nanny for because you got to see them experience the world. And like that's like the coolest thing ever.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
like
yeah.
experiencing things like for them for the first time through them
Mhm.
is just so great because they get excited over everything. Like I'm just like the world's greatest comedian. I like, I'm their like we're their rock. We are everything for them, and that like it's almost like being a little mini celebrity.
I mean, aren't you a celebrity anyways?
I mean, like if you were to even deign to put that on my title, I would be like, I don't even think D list is accurate. I'm like, what? I'm like the set girl that everybody like kind of knows because like they've had to work with her at one time or another. But like, like I'm only really known in the circles. I'm not really like, and I'm totally cool with that. I don't want to be Ann Coulter. I don't want to. I don't want to be like recognizable on the street. That's not like if people like recognize me from Twitter or whatever. I don't care. If like I do podcasts and then like my
Mhm.
niche little groups of people are like, hey, didn't I see you on Finding the Faith or didn't I see you on Simcast or whatever? That's
Yeah.
fine. Like that's fine. I don't want anything bigger than that.
I think it's a really good balance of like getting to be on when you're on and getting to, yeah. I'm so excited to see you on some cast because Chrissy Meyer is such a sweetheart.
Oh yeah, I love doing that. I love doing that panel. Like, and that's a really diverse group of people right there.
Yeah.
From like like hardcore Catholics all the way to like the more unsavory professions that we don't need to go into.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is like I've never really like truly butt heads with anybody on it. Like we've been able. I'm like I said, I'm very vocal and very honest about how I feel about stuff. And even the people who I would normally associate with being kind of like really uppity about my points of view were really respectful and really willing to let me say my piece and respond with theirs, and agree to disagree when appropriate. And I think that's so healthy.
It is. It's so healthy, and it feels like it's so rare too, which is why it's so
Yeah,
nice.
like not everything has to be blood sports. Not everything has to be
Exactly.
like, shut up, you F and F, and like,
Yeah, like you can literally have your opinion that doesn't have to change anything about mine.
Yeah, and like being able to like both represent your viewpoints in that kind of manner and that kind of calm manner, like actually allows people to like figure out what they agree with. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like with blood sports, you go into it, you have a favorite already. You're already picking
Yeah.
a side. You already know. You're not going to leave a blood sports like, oh, like that other guy said something interesting. No, you're going to be like, cheering on your
Yeah.
guy.
Exactly. And I think that's why they've gotten so like much boring to listen to when I've gotten to like a certain age, because I'm like, okay, I already kind of know what's going on there. I already kind of know what's going on there.
And like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I love to smack talk. I will talk. I can spit hate like the best of them, and like I would definitely thrive in a lot of blood sports settings. But it's nice to not to not have that all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when it comes to um I think there's some questions in chat. Let me just double check. Can you share a time when your faith was tested in your marriage and how you overcame it?
My faith being tested, not so much, honestly. Um, I know that's a really boring answer, but like
Hey, for you.
if anything, like when things get more difficult, I lean harder on our faith. So I don't like I said, it's not as if we are without our problems. It's not as if we don't like have struggles and have gone through struggles, and like we both come from incredibly with like dysfunctional backgrounds. As far as like family unit is considered, like I'm adopted and he had his own struggles with family, but uh, that's kind of we've been in each other's lives over half our lives. Like I've
Yeah.
officially it's been 16 years. I'm 31 years old.
That's
It's
amazing.
and yeah, exactly. And I'm just incredibly like blessed to have this kind of person in my life, because I feel like a lot of people um don't find that in their marriage, and like kind of I don't want to necessarily settle, but like in a lot of cases they do settle, and a lot of
Yeah.
cases like they rush into things without thinking about it, and like we by no means necessarily rushed into this at all. This was a long time coming, and I always knew that like I love this person, so I got lucky in a ways that a lot of people like just won't, and I'm not ignorant to that.
It's so amazing too, especially like seeing your wedding pictures and like seeing you guys as a couple now and like how much you've, evolved and grown together. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I just like I said, I'm incredibly blessed and highly favored. Like I don't know what I did to deserve it. I don't know, like, you know, in the last 7 years, like having baby three now, if you had gone back even those 7 years and just said like,
Mhm.
here's where you're gonna be, I might have said you were a liar, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but and that's another thing where you look like the red pill community. There's a lot of like discouraging of women, and I don't want to
Yeah.
say all of it's wrong, because it is harder, and if I hadn't met the love of my life when I was 15, things would probably look a lot different.
Mhm.
But it's not as if like you're doomed if you don't know somebody that you might marry by the time you're 20.
Exactly.
You can change your life, you can turn your life around, and it doesn't um like these you can still achieve, not
Yeah.
all the time, not all the time, and it's definitely harder. It's
But it
definitely a lot
happens.
harder, but it's possible, and I'm living proof of that.
Exactly. And you should be so proud of how, much you've grown and how much, Jesus and you have done together. So we're going to go to our Twitter section and then we'll wrap it up. And on. the app formerly known as Twitter. So, one of the questions is there's more than 7,600 congregations that have left Methodism since May of this year due to a number of factors, including LGBT plus issues. What was it like seeing all of this happen with your background?
I'm so sorry. We had an interruption back here. Could you just
No
repeat
worries.
that one more time?
Everybody okay?
Oh yeah, no, everybody's fine.
Okay.
It was just loud for a second, so I missed
Yeah,
it.
no worries. So there's more than 7,600 congregations that have left Methodism since May of this year due to a number of factors, including LGBT plus issues. What was it like seeing all of this happen with your background?
Well, like I said, that's kind of why it's hard to pick a denomination. That's because I feel like that's happening with every single one of them at this point.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see the attacks on the church, and it's hard to see the downfalls of people of the faith. And I just I just try to be a force that brings people back, and I try to bear witness and share my story and share the light that there is, good churches out there. Even, like I said, like you'll find the Catholic churches with the rainbow flags, and you'll find the Catholic churches with, profound sermons. And I haven't found that in a Catholic church yet, but you just need to be willing to like shop around, because there are a lot of churches, and, the likelihood that you're not going to find anything is very low. You just have to be willing to, actually move around. It's like picking a therapist or something. If you don't find a therapist, then you're not going to stay paying this therapist.
Exactly. And you're also not going to take their advice.
I find the church to be incredibly therapeutic. So like there is a direct correlation to that. Like you don't want to walk into a space where you feel it's incredibly toxic and you're surrounded by people who don't share the same values as you, and the very same thing you would look for in the stability of a therapist.
That's so true. One of the other questions is there a method to being Methodist?
I'm the wrong person. I appreciate the question, but I'm like so the wrong person to ask that. Is there? I don't know. I'm sure there is, but I don't have the answer to that.
Valid. What is Methodism? Oh, sorry. Why is it Methodism and not Wesleyism?
I'm not sure. I just that's just how I've heard it referred to, honestly. And I'm constantly learning more about it, and we've only been here a couple years, honestly. And there's so many ins and outs of the different denominations that keeping track of it has not been my priority, if I'm being completely honest.
Understandably. What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is, depending on my mood, either Tiffany box blue or scarlet red. Because like there's definitely moods for both of them.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't just have one favorite color. I know that it's like you have to have. I guess like I would lean more towards Tiffany box blue, but I love red.
Mine too. That's what color my KitchenAid mixer is, and my shirt, kind of. It's the closest color American Apparel makes in my Finding the Faith March shirt. Oh. And the last question is from the Twitter questions. What part did your Aunt Anne play in your walk with the Lord? What's the best advice, spiritual, otherwise, or both, that she's given you?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, she was always very encouraging that I find God in my life, and she was always, but not like pushy. A lot of my family were very pushy about it. She was never very pushy about it. And when I had questions, she was very willing to answer. She also, I also like, I love going to church with her because she always somehow finds the best churches. But as far as lessons, just like both about productivity and about just like being the best myself I can be. She just always encouraged me to like do better and be better and surround myself with better, as far as like people who are spiritual, people who will put me in the right direction. And she would reveal to me that she was praying for me to find my salvation. And just having people like that in my corner is just really important. And she also she saw that I was trying to break away from the lifestyle I was living, and she really embraced me, and she took me under her wing and introduced me to all sorts of new people my age who I have become lifelong friends and who, you know, changed my life in ways that I will never be able to repay them for. So, and even down to, you know, I was living in a really horrible situation in Los Angeles, and a family friend of hers was the one who offered to take me in and, you know, really set the example for me of like what to look for in a husband. And like not too long after that, my husband resurfaced, and he's the one who sat down with me and said, like, this man really loves you. I can tell he genuinely loves you. So you need to take this seriously or you need to let him go. And, you know, in the next 3 months, I was packing my bags and moving 3,000 miles away. And a year later I'm married. So like that's really without her influence and without her ability to like kind of get me rescued out of a situation that I never would have really been able to make it out of my own. She really pulled through for me in so many ways, and she is a blessing in my life.
That's amazing. And I'm so glad that you're out of that situation and that you're here with us now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one hell of a situation, I will say.
Yeah. Praise Jesus for that one. Well, thank you so very much for coming on Finding the Faith tonight. Would you like to close us out with prayer?
Do you want me to lead out the prayer?
Yes, please.
Yes, of course. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the circumstances that bring us together this evening. We thank you for all of the blessings that you have bestowed upon us and the blessings that you will continue to bestow upon us of faith and those who seek out your name. Lord Jesus, please look over all of us as we try to become better in our faith and as we try to find the way to your best message. Please put a special hand of protection over those who need it the most. Lord, you know who that is in your heart, and we embrace your protection and we embrace your word. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that beautiful prayer, and thank you so much for being here. Everybody stay blessed and stay blessed. Hold up for some quick reminders. I just talked for how long? Come on, it's your turn. Leave a comment, please. Hey, don't forget to like the stream. Don't be selfish. Share this stream with a friend. Or, with an enemy. I don't judge. On an unrelated note, I also have a Substack if you want more Freda-related content. This is different than Finding the Faith, but it's pretty cool, so check it out.